Hello, hello. Welcome all, and thank you so much for stopping by. I've got another video that I'm excited to show you today, guys, because we'll be debuting a new creator on the channel, YellowFlash 2, also just known as YellowFlash. I've been following him for a few years now, and he is an individual that definitely leans right of center. I'd say as far as mid-right, however you'd like to phrase that. Very much like the Liberalhivemind in a lot of ways. He does use a lot of provocative language, which we don't like to see, but he does make a lot of good points underneath all of that. And there is a consistent logic to a lot of the videos that I have watched of his. Sometimes he can go off the rails a little bit. Hopefully he won't do so too bad in this video, but do just be prepared for that. But we'll catch him up should that occur. Now, YellowFlash is also a artist, I believe, or at least he works with artists. He has his own graphic novel series, and if memory serves, it's called The Golden Patriot. Now, I haven't read it myself, but I have had a look over some of the cells and some of the artwork, and it does seem quite well done. And we always do like to support creators in their endeavors. So, and given his political leanings, I can only assume by that and the title that it's going to be quite a patriotic graphic novel. So if that is something that interests you, and particularly if you're American, I believe, as I do believe YellowFlash is American. Do not quote me on that, as I'm not too sure, but all signs point towards that. But so if you're a patriotic American, you'd probably like to check that out, but don't take my word for it. You can have a look for yourself and determine if that's something that interests you. So we'll be reacting to his video, Liberal Women Kills $1 Million Marketing Campaign today. Now, this story broke overnight, essentially, and it's something that I'd like to gain more information on. And YellowFlash is usually pretty good at cutting through a lot of the drama and a lot of the crap that circulates, not without adding a certain amount of his own crap. Again, see that provocative marketing, but that's what we're here to see and what we're here to react to. So I'm interested to see what the situation is about. As about all I know is it's to do with either a Blizzard employee or an ex-Blizzard employee, and I'm going to assume they've gone off the rails in a rather dramatic fashion if there's so much scuttlebutt about it. But that's what we're here to find out. So without further ado, let's get going. YellowFlash, you have the floor.
I've been watching this Overwatch drama. It's been pretty entertaining. We're going to go over it. They've gotten a little bit of a bump. Some players have come back. Now, this is significant because Marvel Rivals is pretty much steamrolled the game and taken all of its thunder. It hasn't really calmed down. If you look here, the 24
and again, I do keep forgetting to mention this, but if you are new here, because we are constantly gaining subscribers on this channel, I do recommend watching my videos at 1.25 or 1.5 times speed, whatever is most comfortable for you.
Our peak for this game was still 117,000 people. Yesterday was Monday. So there's still a ton of people playing this game. Not so much for Overwatch. Their 24-hour peak was only 58,000 people. They've been humiliated.
I also need to jump in here. Now, this is a personal anecdote, but it highlights how some people think. Because one of my previous partners, she was massively into Overwatch, as was her group of friends. Now, I'm talking from the very early days of Overwatch 1, when you could all queue as D.Va or whichever character you preferred, really. And that's fine. You're allowed to do whatever you like there. Her issue was that she would get incredibly mad, like League of Legends player mad, super toxic, as were her friends, and there was always excuses, and it would bring a really bad atmosphere to the house, and she'd get super emotional about it. And normally I'd let her go most of the way just on her own, and I'd only pull her back when she started to get really extreme, throwing the controller and that type of thing. But then naturally, being in an emotional state, she would then turn on me, and we would inevitably lead into an argument, which I would de-escalate, which she also absolutely hated. She hated that I could get ahead of her emotions and de-escalate like that. But that's neither here nor there. The reason I bring this up is, at one point she challenged me to do better, essentially, because I was giving her tips on what she needed to do, because they would choose their characters at the start of the match, and they would stick to those characters no matter what was happening in game. They also played those characters incredibly poorly, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, like, objectively, they played them quite poorly. And then they never synergized with each other. They had a full team. They had 5 people. They weren't playing with randoms. And I believe, I can't remember if Overwatch had ranked and social at the start. But even if they were playing ranked, it would have been at the very bottom of the tier. So it's not like they were going up against super competent opponents either. And anyway, one time she threw a few times, but the main time I'm referring to, she threw the controller at me. I was like, well, you do better then. And that is exactly what I did. To cut a long story short, I switched between Bastion and Genji, and yeah, okay, you can shout cancer all you want, but ultimately, I started winning all the matches I was a part of, essentially solo carrying. I'm not going to take full credit for it because there were 4 other people in the match on my team, but they weren't really doing much. And I do remember at one point, I believe I was Genji, I got over the walls, and I essentially bottled the enemy team up, 4 of their players, within their spawn. Every time they would come out, I would manage to gank them, and so they became very reluctant to come out of their spawn. Now, bear in mind, this only lasted about a minute and a half, but I bottled 4 team members up for that full minute and a half. And eventually they did overcome me, and I was killed. At which point my now ex-partner pointed out, "Oh, haha, you died." And I'm like, "Yes, correct. But in that time, how far have we pushed the objective? Because they have had a single teammate out on the map." By the way, that teammate was also more or less soloing the other 4 teammates of mine, the rest of her friends group as well. But he wasn't able to prevent the payload being pushed forward. So we've gotten it past a checkpoint or 2. We're talking years ago now, so I don't fully remember. This was, relatively shortly after Overwatch 1 launched. And so I tried to point out, like, this is not a deathmatch. The objective is to get the payload to the destination. It is relevant how many times you die, as long as you're actually adding value. By bottling up the enemy team, 4 of the enemy team's members for a full minute and a half, that represents, about 7 minutes worth of game time. And if these matches go, let's say they go for 5 minutes, there's 5 per team, that's 25 minutes that the enemy team has to spend, then I got back a 4-to-1 return. So I spent a minute and a half of our team's time, and I gained 7-ish minutes of enemy teammates' time. So they're at a much greater disadvantage now. And it's just, that would not click in her head, no matter how many times I tried to get that point across. So how that ties back into this Overwatch 2 was just, Overwatch 1 was amazing at the start, back when Mercy could res an entire team, and back when all the ultimates were good, and McCree was McCree, and the sheer style that Overwatch 1 exuded was amazing. And I definitely believe that is a huge part of what made that game so successful. Because it was fun, but it was also just a PvP objective-based arena shooter. And I don't like PvP shooters. This was also on her... you know what? Doesn't matter what console. Not a console that I'm used to playing, and I still managed to get it done. Either way, when you go from Overwatch 1, right early days, to what Overwatch 2 is now, okay, there might be a similar cel-shaded style, but it really is a shame to see what Overwatch has become, because it could have been so much better. If you were there in the original days, I want you to think back on how good the original 1.0 patch of Overwatch 1 was. It was fun, it was energetic, all the characters had their own style, your teams could do all of these crazy things. It was just a really good, fun time. Compare that to now, you can only do one hero, you have to have a support, I believe, you have to have a tank, you have to have I don't know if they call it a DPS. I've fallen off of the Overwatch bandwagon, and the designs have just gone down the tube. So it is a shame to see, because I do consider it a big loss compared to what it could be. You don't always compare the actual cost of something, you compare the cost of opportunity. And Overwatch could have become one of the great cultural milestones Blizzard could have been riding high on that for ages, and we can get into the discussions about what Activision did and all of that type of stuff. But just, I guess, yeah, a moment of silence for what Overwatch could have been, I suppose. Anyway, we're drifting from the point. Let's continue.
Marvel Rivals. Because Marvel Rivals focuses on fan service and trying to keep its player base happy and engaged with all kinds of fun comic book stuff. Now with Overwatch, they're more concerned with, who can we make gay? Like every hero in this game is gay or something.
That is another big point. Have you seen that? I don't know what it would be referred to now, but the Blizzard diversity chart, where it's essentially a circular chart. There is a specific name for it. I do apologize. The name escapes me at this current moment, but it essentially means that every character must have some kind of disability or some kind of diversity quota, or there has to be something with this character that will prevent them from being a straight, white, young, cis male. Blizzard will never make a character like that if they're following this chart, and that was a huge blow up. So if you haven't seen that already, and you don't need to take my word for it, this is an actual thing. This is not just me making it up. Blizzard released this themselves. Apparently being straight and white and cis and young and male is the ultimate bad. And if you're all of those things, then it is not allowed to exist. It either has to be old, or it has to be some kind of differing gender, or it has to be a different race. Like you cannot have a straight white cis male anymore, according to Blizzard. And I think that flows through in the characters designs of today. I mean, technically, I believe that flowed through in the original character designs already. I mean, Soldier 76 would be the closest thing you'd get, I suppose. But I don't know if they retconned that and made Soldier 76 gay. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, he was old to begin with anyway. So that's how they filled that quota there. And then what they did to Tracer. Oh my God. Anyway, we don't need to get into it, but if you didn't know that exists, that kind of exemplifies this left-leaning mindset where apparently it's evil to be what you are unless you're one of these particular statuses that they already agree with.
Like they're constantly putting stuff like that out there, which I think is kind of hurt the game a little bit, because for a while, every time there was an announcement for this game, it was like, well, now this character's into this sexual thing. It's like, can you just fix the game or something, or make that other chick's ass better? Marvel Rivals comes out, they make everybody's ass good. So after years of turmoil following Overwatch 2's rocky free-to-play launch, which, by the way, was plagued by canceled promises.
McCree should have been a straight, white, cis, young male, though. I mean, could you make the argument for Junkrat? I don't know. There would have to be something there if they're following this chart. Because Roadhog's very alternative. And if you've seen some of the fan art, I don't know what his official sexuality is, but if you've seen some of the fan art out there, people don't seem to be interpreting him that way. What's the term? Bear, I believe. Some people are really into Roadhog, but I suppose some people would be into basically any of the original cast of Overwatch. Either way, he's making some good points here, is what I'm trying to get at.
Content droughts, aggressive monetization, and a plummeting player base that hit all-time lows, like around 24K on Steam. Blizzard dropped a big announcement rebranding the game back to Overwatch to bury all of that baggage that they put on it. Put out a massive showcase going over a lot of the new updates and the crossovers that they're going to have. I guess they've got something with Hello Kitty and a few other things coming. And they made the focus on the content. It was actually pretty good. And then, guess what? They threw it all away to kiss this voice actor's ass that they hired. Now, this is funny. This is like her first work, I believe. Her first voice actor work. And the first thing she does after she gets the job is come out and shit on the company and talk about how they need to remake her character to basically be more ugly because she's too pretty. She's too sexy. So we need to make her fat and ugly. Hiring these kind of people is the main problem. Well, not the main problem. One of the biggest problems in Western gaming is they go out of their way to kiss these people's asses. I would have fired this person immediately and replaced her because there's still time. You can always go back and just change the character anyway through an update.
See, what I'm about to say, I don't mean in a mean way, but some of these people do seem out of touch with reality, and they are only able to exist because society protects them. It is my opinion that basically everyone does not realize how close they are to death at all times. And I'm not saying that to be edgy either. I just mean the world is a very cruel place, and you, even if it's simply accidental or circumstance, you are never more than a fraction of a millimeter or a fraction of a second away from death. And speaking to people in society can be rather frustrating because they always say things like, no one would do this, or no one would do me harm, no one means me harm, I don't think. And it's, no, you assume someone does mean you harm. Assume hostile intent. So they want to harm you. What is going to prevent that? Most people these days rely on the social contract, and that is a very flimsy thing. There is the finest veneer of societal expectations around your behavior that people rely on day in and day out. And the moment that gets rubbed off, either because the person is on some kind of substance, or they possibly just have mental issues, or they're from a different culture, or any number of other issues. The moment someone wants to do you harm, there's nothing really to prevent that. We do have the police, but the police take at least a few minutes to get to you. If they do get to you in time, the worst that's going to happen is, assuming this person actually goes through and gets convicted, they're going to be put in jail. They're going to be put in timeout. Like, there is no real consequence to bad behavior, and, well, for the person perpetrating the bad behavior. But the consequence to you of bad behavior is you're dead, or you're disabled, or you're critically injured, or you have this absolutely horrible experience. The social contract cannot be relied upon, especially in these progressive times where we're just constantly backsliding. And I do worry about that because people don't seem to want to acknowledge that. So this person getting up and saying you need to, assuming we take YellowFlash at his word here, I'm sure he'll demonstrate. But if they get up and say you need to fix this character in this way because I want this, that, and the other, that person doesn't seem to realize how close they are to being destitute at best. Like, this person would be let go in any kind of system that does not have those societal protections in place. And if this wasn't at a company like Blizzard, that is exactly what would happen. And what are you going to do without money when you can't buy food, when you can't afford your rent? Unless this person is already in a very privileged position, which possibly they could be if they feel comfortable standing up and saying that, then you wouldn't risk the employment, especially not the job market the way it is, and especially not in a field as competitive as voice acting. I've worked with voice actors in the past, and I have been on the hiring side of things. I won't go into detail, but it is an incredibly huge field of people trying to get in, and there is an amazing breadth of talent. Some of the submissions that I have reviewed are from some of the most incredibly talented people you can imagine, and their submissions were absolute masterclasses in how to be voice actors. And these are relative amateurs as well. Like, these are, okay, I'm not going to go breach my operational security like that, but they're amateurs. I have worked with seasoned voice actors as well, and they can take it to another level. Again, a seasoned voice actor is more, you can tell because they have a much more diversified range in what they can do. Anyway, I'm drifting from the point again, but in a field as competitive as voice acting, this person has actually gotten in and been hired at this large company and they're going to risk that for this social cause. This person does not realize how dangerous the world is, and I believe that this whole scenario is just exemplifying that.
I would have fired this person immediately. How dare you make a stupid-ass comment? She completely hijacked the momentum that...
Again, just catching Flash up on the language there. Whilst I disagree with what she's saying, also note, at no point in that tirade did I attack the person or call this person stupid. I did postulate that they could possibly be privileged, and that would explain why, that would explain their actions. But attack ideas, not the person.
They got from that big announcement, completely hijacked and destroyed it. So just as this game explodes back into relevance, because who was talking about Overwatch? Everyone was talking about Marvel Rivals. This activist, and that's what I'm going to call her because that's what this bullshit is, hijacks the spotlight. Now keep in mind that they had apparently 70,000 concurrent players after all of this stuff went down. And she hijacked it to talk about how Blizzard must redesign her character to challenge beauty standards and ditch the Ozempic look. So what started as fan gripes over same face syndrome, because all of the characters apparently are just too pretty. Like, these people want ugly characters. These are the worst people to listen to. But you've already done it. Overwatch, the developers came out and said, yeah, we're going to listen to what you have to say. And we're going to try to make you happy. So they keep listening to these people that just turn this game into a shit show. So now, because of this, the new announcement morphed into a culture war battle. And she even calls it, we're going to play the clip. She calls this a hill worth dying on. Mourning the lost potential and urging devs to make her character more realistic. And this is a game... Nothing's real about this shit. I can't stand... PlayStation did this with their Horizon game that they're putting out. They have a fat woman that's missing a leg. So she's like basically diabetes type 2 representation. Blizzard caved really fast on this, promising they were going to tweak it. But honestly, it seems like the damage is done. Chinese fans are mad about it. You've totally screwed up your momentum to listen to someone with their head. If you see someone that has half of their head shaved and a nose ring, it's time to move on. This isn't someone that you should be listening to. But they caved and immediately gave into what she had to say. Let's listen to this.
I'm Fariha, and I voice Anran in Overwatch.
This is a moment that I'll regret forever. Who the hell is going to hire this woman after this? Wow, we could bring her in and she'll just hijack all of our momentum.
Or do be careful, YellowFlash, because they're not hiring based on merit or ability in this case. I can't say that for certain. I shouldn't be so facetious. But the general theme is that they're hiring based on identity, which is a criteria that is independent of any ability or any social activism, like this. So we don't know for sure that she's never going to get hired again. And if she's trying to optimize for that social activism, activism, my apologies, and that identity hire, then this, whilst I don't agree with it, I can see a certain logic behind it. Because if the identity politics is what's going to get you hired, then leaning into those identity politics, such as she's doing here, could actually, potentially, be beneficial for your future prospects. Now, we can debate whether or not that's actually the case, but consider the logic from her standpoint, at least what seems to be her logic.
Just completely hijack it, which she did.
大家朋友们好，我是 Fariha， 我是安然的英语配音演员。I'm gonna be so honest. I'm nervous about this video.
Is she wearing red contact lenses? Yes, I do believe she is. Interesting.
Because I didn't want to not address the elephant in the room, but I didn't want to...
Remember, the elephant in the room is a handful of losers who probably bitched about the character being too pretty. She's too pretty, needs to be changed, needs to be hyper-muscular.
on the devs' toes or speak on their behalf, because it's this tightrope in my mind of trying to honor the community and everyone's criticisms, because I agree.
Community. The community. It's a handful of people.
And also give grace to the developers, because they're always trying their best in...
What grace you're showing them just immediately after their launch event that helped boost their game's visibility and kind of get it back to relevance. You immediately hijacked it and put yourself out there. And you did a good job. You went...
Not to be a conspiracy theorist here, but let's assume, okay, Blizzard wants the maximum amount of exposure. And we do know that the algorithms are engagement machines, or engagement engines, sorry. And what feeds engagement? Well, outrage is one of the best tactics for that. So whilst I'm not saying Blizzard would have coordinated this, I wonder if they would actually, well, at least the executives and the people higher up would actually be upset about this, because those higher ups don't really care about the quality of the game. They only care about player count and whether or not it's in the news cycle. And I mean, this has put it in the news cycle. We are here talking about it. So in a roundabout sort of way, we can consider that maybe they're not as mad as they otherwise should be, because they are getting a certain amount of engagement and it has helped signal boost that launch.
More viral than the game. I heard about this, not the game's relaunch. I remember hearing about them dropping the 2 and going back to just...
To my previous point, and to YellowFlash's point here, yes, that is correct. I didn't realize Overwatch 2 had relaunched until... well, this video, basically, until just now. I have heard of this drama before that relaunch, so that is a very good point.
Overwatch? It's like, oh, okay, well, you know, that's probably smart because Overwatch 2 just has a bad name. And then now it's this woman here hijacking it completely.
The situation they're in, right? So I wanted to make sure that was there before I celebrated anything myself. So here goes. I got to mourn Anran between the design I had hoped for her and the design we ended up with.
That's not your job to care about the design, though. Your job is to put words in the character's mouth.
Point of dispute there. As a actor, your job is to fall in love with the character and present that character as best as your abilities allow to fulfill the director and the writer's vision. I do understand the point he's actually trying to make, as in you are just a vessel for the character. You don't have your own opinion, but you as an actor, it is your job to fall in love with the characters you are portraying.
But I felt compelled to say something.
Because I think in her...
Sorry for pausing so much, but yes, to his point, just because you are in love with the character does not mean you go out in a public forum and speak for the company or do anything like this. That is beyond the scope of what you were meant to do.
Comic and the cinematic elemental kin. There was a precedent set by it. There was a unspoken promise that said, we're going to challenge the beauty standards plaguing and ransacking media these days, right? The Ozempic chic, the contour your nose, you have no nose, the tiniest nose. And I think because of that precedence,
because people like smaller noses on women. But we need to change it. Let's give her a giant schnoz now. I'm sure that will go over so well. But, you know, keep in mind, in the competition, which is Marvel Rivals, they don't give a shit about what these people usually have to say and just make the characters all sexy anyway. That's why Overwatch is losing to that game so badly. Because instead of worrying about, you know, the sexuality of a character, they just make everybody sexy, and then they just the characters go out and shoot each other, which is all anybody's looking for a game like this.
people feel understandably let down. Overwatch is a trailblazer at challenging that, right? Of trying to break those molds, of trying to explore the bounds of what it means to be good, what it looks like to be heroic. And I think the result we got says something else. It says something that leaves...
It said, hey, we want to get some of our players back who are playing Marvel Rivals now. Please come back. And then immediately, activists that worked on the game came out and just destroyed any of that. Any of that momentum is completely gone now.
about
And we are now once again back to the conversation that's been plaguing this game for years and ruining it. Is, oh, well, which character can we make gay or some kind of queer allegory? Which is all I ever hear about with Overwatch. The only time I hear anybody talking about Overwatch anymore is if it's revolving around some character's sexuality.
bad taste in our mouths. It's not the bold, optimistic swing that we know Overwatch to make, and it's a look that isn't congruent with her personality, right? She looks like the younger sibling. She looks more...
Overwatch is not a platform for your political ideology. Overwatch is a PvP arena shooter video game, and it exists to make a profit. So if you're not going to recognize your audience, your market segment, do your competitor analysis, and doing all of the regular business things, then you're going to fail. And that's basically what we're seeing. Yeah, Overwatch still has a fair amount of players, and compared to indie games, it's quite large. But this is Blizzard we're talking about. It should be millions of players, not tens of thousands.
docile somehow as the fire hero. She looks more docile than the most docile peacekeeping support in the game. And I've been seeing everyone's redesigns and quietly bookmarking them. But I wanted you to hear that this concern is important. This is a hill worth dying on. It's worth speaking on.
Yeah. It's probably going to cause your career to die. Well, no, she's like a streamer, I guess. So she gets something that she could maybe translate into some kind of new career, and she immediately killed it. Smart move. You'd be an idiot to hire this woman because, well, okay, if we get big momentum, she might come in and hijack it and ruin it. Like, you give women in the video game industry a bad name doing this shit because there's so many of them saying dumb shit all the time.
Because I believe that the more we speak up about the things that truly matter.
That is a good point that he makes there, because I have worked with female video game designers and women within the video game industry. And despite what we're currently seeing on screen, a lot of them are actually, or for lack of a better term, bros. I mean, they understand that they're there to do a job. They have their own vision. They're excited about the industry, and they do a good job. So when he's saying like this stereotype here with the vibrantly dyed hair, the red contacts, the sharp earring, the nose ring, the tattoo, like it is feeding into a negative stereotype. And you do need to understand that you represent your views and anyone else who might share those views. This is partly why I get onto the likes of YellowFlash and Liberalhivemind and even Kirsche when they use inappropriate language, because they do make a lot of logical points, but then those logical points get lost and they get buried beneath the insults and the provocative language, and all minutia is lost, and it cheapens your side, and that's what this person is doing. So if you're for women's rights and women's representation and women in STEM and video games, which I would assume this person is she's actually hurting her cause by feeding into that stereotype. It's unfortunate to see.
Matter to us, the more we'll see ourselves reflected in the world.
How does this truly matter? It's a fucking video game. You act like you're going to cure cancer or world hunger if you make this character look like a monkey's ass in the game. Well, she's challenging beauty standards.
Around us, the more we'll see our values in the world around us, right? And I want you to know that I shared all of this with the dev team.
I bet you did. Now you're doing it publicly and embarrassing them.
Not only that, I was encouraged to be as open and honest as possible, to not hold anything back. And it's my hope that...
They were probably hoping you didn't do this, though.
This isn't for naught, right? That they see it, they hear it from you all too. And while it's it's not my position to decide what can be done and what gets done about this, will keep championing, championing for the version of her that we all wished for, right? And I want you to do the same.
Who is we all? Is it you and a handful of losers on X? And Blue Sky, probably. Threads.
With boldness, with kindness, and with...
How kind of you to hijack the momentum of this game's resurgence.
Because
if you were leading with kindness and acceptance, would you not accept people and characters for who they are, truly, rather than arguing, well, you're too pretty or you don't represent my vision of you? Wouldn't that seems a little hypocritical from what she's saying? You noticed before when I was saying that, you know, she represents her opinions, I was not saying that her particular style is anything I disagree with, nor is it something that I'm going to attack her or insult her over. I was simply stating that she's feeding into a negative stereotype by matching that stereotype. So whilst, like, there's a right way to comment on appearance and there's a wrong way to comment on appearance. And I'm not saying that she's wrong for her particular style. I'm not even saying it's wrong that, or her fault that that stereotype exists. But you need to acknowledge the reality of the situation. And I'll comment more on that in a little bit once we're at the end of the video.
Overwatch is not an exploration of what the world is. It's an exploration on what the world could be.
Okay, right? Where everyone's
so,
gay.
Much love if you made it all the way here to the end. I hope you have so much fun playing on Run. I know I am, but I'll see you out there.
We'll see about that because the player count's already going back down. Yeah, this encapsulates a lot of just pretty much everything that's rotten in Western gaming. You had a promising revival hijacked by an activist insider who took some fan complaints and morphed it into some kind of crusade against unrealistic beauty standards, mourning the lost potential to make her bolder, less conventionally pretty as a hill worth dying on. So
I do wonder how many of the people who are complaining about the attractiveness of this character would actually play and purchase loot boxes within the game. Again, there seems to be a disconnect. There'll be plenty of people that will come out and say, yes, change this character to suit my political needs. But when it comes time to actually showing up and spending the money and voting with your wallet, that audience is nowhere to be seen. And we have seen that over and over and over again. So This is the thing. A business is meant to be run for profit, and there's no issue with that. We can get into issues with, you know, over monetization and value extraction. And look, Overwatch has been pretty bad for the loot boxes. Let's be clear on that. They are a pioneer of loot boxes and helped to go mainstream, which is an inherently negative thing. Do you want to be clear on that? But still, you would think that a game so over monetized like that would care more about a paying audience than a non-paying audience. And look, prove me wrong if you do believe in this and this has convinced you to go play the game and drop some money, by all means. Like, I'm not going to stop you from voting with your wallet. Go make this game a massive success. Give them all your money because they capitulated. But I don't see that happening, at the very least for more than a handful of people. So I wonder what their long-term strategy here is, because it does not follow a logic there.
He got handed a dream role, doesn't celebrate, but amplifies outrage, urging fans to bombard devs and framing it as the game's duty. It's the game's duty to challenge molds at Plague Media. Instead of fixing laziness with unique, attractive designs, it's code for uglifying heroes to push more self-loathing ideology. And, of course, Blizzard's as spineless as ever, caved instantly. The director came out and promised tweaks by season's end. We agree. She could be even better, they basically said. Turning launch hype into a more culture war sludge. Alienating players who just want fun and sexy characters like in Japanese games, not this endless DEI pandering narcissism where VAs dictate art and diversity means ditching beauty for lectures. This is really Western gaming's suicide. Prioritizing vocal activists over escapism, bloating dev time on redesigns instead of gameplay, and proving why players flock to gotchas that unapologetically deliver eye candy without the guilt trip. And that is why Western media continues to fall. You see more people flocking to Japanese stuff. I mean, hell, look at comic books. Manga is king. Anime is becoming king. You're seeing people go back to Eastern games. China's jumping in, taking that market back. Like, it's getting pretty real. And these people are going to learn real fast. Real fast. They already have been. You've seen so many of these big games just completely fail. Look at that High Guard game. That game is dead. 4,000 something people playing that piece of shit right now. And I bet you Overwatch is going to fall back down too. People are just going to go back to Marvel Rivals, where they don't have to hear this bullshit. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Okay, there we go. And that was YellowFlash. I did have to catch him up a few times on his language, and I did dispute a few points that he made. But underneath that, again, provocative language, we do see a lot of good points that he makes there. They do have a solid logical grounding, and he does back those points up. It's not just throwaway lines for the most part. So I do like to see what YellowFlash does, and he is quite good at bringing these stories from the gaming industry forward. So I do enjoy watching YellowFlash, and if you enjoyed that, then I'd suggest definitely give him a like and a subscribe as well, because he does do a lot of this, and it is always great to see. I do have a lot more to say on this situation, but I don't believe it would drive the narrative forward. Ultimately, I just believe that, yeah, this voice actress, whilst I don't know her upbringing, from the little I have seen of her, she does seem quite privileged. How do I put this? Without giving too much detail, I did grow up in poverty. Let's be honest. I was going to say extreme poverty, but then I think about the actual extreme poverty over in places like Niger and whatnot, and I wouldn't say it was that far. But it's things like walking home on your own as a student, and you have to go through the old concrete pipes and the concrete storm drains, and you're worried about the sound of the crushed glass under your feet alerting someone who's hiding up ahead. It's living through home invasions. It's seeing someone on the street where, hey, if they're carrying a machete, doesn't matter what their race is, doesn't matter what their gender is, you avoid that situation. And if you're someone like this person who goes, oh no, I'd be being stereotypical because, you know, they're a person of color, or you know, just because they have low socioeconomic status doesn't mean they're going to cut me up with that machete. It's like, no, those people do not survive out in these situations, out in the real world. It's and I don't like to use the term real world either, because that has been co-opted to basically mean, someone who I wish harm to. And I don't wish harm to this person. From what I have seen, I don't believe this person would have survived some of these situations I have had to endure because of the opinions that they hold. Those opinions and survival can be mutually exclusive. So the fact that this person would come out, risk their employment like that, again, assuming it's not a calculated ploy at that diversity hire, at that identity based hire, which it very well could be, then yeah, this is not someone who would survive those types of situations. But I don't need to go too much into those details. The point here is YellowFlash rather than the original video. I think YellowFlash has done a good job. I think he's listed a lot of good points that dispute what this voice actress was saying, and he does bring in a lot of additional context. So again, give him a subscribe if you like that. And similar, I also need to do all of the usual YouTube things. The channel has been just it has been exploding recently. Thank you all so much for the support. If you did like this video, definitely give it a like and a subscribe. We are improving every single day. Every single video, there's some new improvement, whether that's audio levels, whether that's an end card, whether that's music. I was expecting to have to grind for months before I got any traction, and the fact that this channel has gone so far, so fast, I'm just racing to keep up. So thank you all so much for staying here with me. If there is anything else you would like me to react to, definitely leave it in a comment or hit me up on X. Just tag me in whatever content you would like me to react to, and I'll give it a look. And with that, guys, I'll let you get back to the rest of your day. Thanks so much for coming along, and have a good one.